So, as Łukasz said, we are joined by two very special guests, Justyna Górniak, CEO of Papaya Films. Hello, Justyna. Nice to see you. And Krzysztof Kosz, the director, but not the director behind the desk, but behind the camera. So, mind you that this is very important for this conversation, and also a writer. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here closing this conference. So, how do you feel about being the last but not least here today with us?
Good afternoon, and I feel really proud and happy we can join such a great event and full of so many guests. Thank you for inviting us. First of all, we in the creative industry are not very often that much asked to join the table of this discussion. And at the end, I think we can actually bring quite an interesting point of view and quite an interesting set of insights, because we are somehow between the brands, clients, business, and targeting consumers, audience, regular people, everyone who watches lots of content these days, because as you may be aware, we produce advertisements, a bit of feature films as well, and documentaries. So we somehow probably the content that we produce were probably seen by many of you watching this conference, even not knowing that we were behind the production or behind the camera, as Krzysztof is.
That's why it's lovely to have you here. So Krzysztof, let's go with the first question, and it will be for you. Let's start with a big one.
Pleasure.
With your background as a director, as a person who is behind the camera, and with your big experience in the industry, how would you say you perceive inclusion in the creative industry from your perspective?
Oh yeah, the creative industry was always probably the first in the inclusivity business. But because of the diversity that fuels the creativity, but it's also a business, as usual. So there are challenges, and there is always something good to have. Actually, as inclusivity in business, in creative business, I was a creative director for 10 years, but I'm not for 7 years. I have been director for 7 years, but I'm also a disabled director for 5 years. I had an accident 5 years ago, and since 5 years ago, I'm working as a director actually on a wheelchair. And I'm probably the best example of inclusivity, because this business is, of course, it's open and diverse, but the creative branch of the creative part, the specific my own part of the creativity, which is directing, is very demanding. So 5 years ago, when I had an accident, I thought I'm going to end under the bridge or somewhere else. And being in the hospital, I was pretty worried. And everyone was telling me I should not be, because everyone are waiting, and I will have my job, because it's thing I love, and it's something I couldn't imagine I could stop doing because of my disability. And actually, at that time, I was working with my friend. We were a directors duo. So when Kuba, my partner, was on the set, I was working on the bed, actually, because I was writing the scripts. And it was awesome. It was very good for my head. And after 5 months, when I left the hospital, actually, I was on the set 2 weeks after I left the hospital. 2 weeks after I left, I was on the first set. Of course, Kuba my partner, was making a lot of work, but I could do a lot. And then we split. And for last 3 years, I'm working myself. And this is actually awesome, because the openness of industry surprised me a lot. Of course, there are some people that probably don't want to work with me, but it's not their bad will It's probably more of a lack of knowledge, or maybe they're a little bit of shy. But the dozens of people that helped me start to work and actually have some, from my perspective, some successes is really astonishing. I've been working for, apart from small brands which I love, some music videos, I was working for McDonald's, KFC, ING, Johnny Walker, Unilever, just the big brands, and quite big budgets also. And this industry, my part of the industry, the directing, the shooting commercials, is very competitive, is demanding from the budget perspective. It needs to be focused and to be ready and to be strong. And people are, I think they have right to be afraid to work with me. And my job is to convince them it is not. And I try to do it as well as possible.
I think that you perfectly summed up also the previous segment that was here before our blog about the disability inclusion.
Yes, I was listening. I've been listening for 40 hours, 40 minutes, sorry. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about and after who I am talking about.
Yeah, it's good to be aware, but still it's good to hear about those good behaviors that foster the inclusivity in case of disability. Of course, actually you answered my question about those people embodying the message that they have behind. So maybe Justyna, a question for you as a very experienced leader in terms of the creative industry, because you worked with multiple people who are responsible for the media, for the pop culture. So let me ask you, what resonates most with the audience? What do people like, or what they don't like? Do you have any insight in that?
Yes, I think I can share with you a couple of thoughts based on my experience, but also based on what the data shown or seen on many different conferences about what is generally effective in terms of communication and marketing these days all around the world. So it's more a general content to every type of content. I think it applies very much to the topics of diversity and inclusivity as well. And this is authenticity and emotional connection built with the audience, with the viewers. And I think this is a very common thread for different type of content, but in terms of inclusive content, or the one that has additional objective or sending a message about diversity, this is even more and more important. There are lots of good and worse examples of how to do it. And the good examples are those where the brands who are communicating within this area are doing it in a natural way, in natural context. If they are using it when it's naturally connected either to the brand or to the contents of this communication. I think quite interesting example was we could have seen this year when it comes to the Olympic Games, because lots of brands pick up this topic when it comes to the Paralympics actually. So taking the advantage of this event happening just after the Olympics, they actually very naturally and in a very good and polite way use this as a chance to communicate with the consumers. And I think we really got a very unique and very sensitive and good in terms of quality piece of work that is being right now under different awards of different competitions. What is, I think, important is that this is still a bit more of a story of the international markets, of, at least from my experience, international brands are more interested in that. I would say that in Poland, it's still, for the Polish clients, for the Polish brands, it's still an area that is a bit more challenging, how to navigate within that, how to navigate within the, I don't know, proper wording, proper context, proper video. But I guess this is also a great space for organizations like Diversity Hub to, educate and to promote the proper ways and proper tools of communication around diversity.
Yeah, I think that right now I'm thinking that actually we do have a lot in common when it comes to like the business world, the financial industry, which I experienced, working with people in such segment, and the creative industry. We basically all try to navigate what is the proper way of implementing some good changes that we want to boost the creativity. And I couldn't agree more about the authenticity, because this is also something that came up during yesterday's workshop and always comes up during our workshops about the impact of entertainment on the views of people who actually build the culture of our companies. So I wanted to ask you, Krzysiek, if the role of a director is also the role of someone who fosters inclusivity on set, and then the inclusion is visible like in front of the camera in the final product, or there are other factors that maybe come into that?
Yeah, there's a difference between what happens in front of camera and behind the camera. Behind the camera is my kingdom. In front of camera, I can only advise. And what I do, I often advise clients or agencies to make more inclusivity. It's very, but this part is, the steps are made very well from my perspective. There is a diversity in front of camera. Of course, the Poland is a specific market. There are some differences between Eastern or Central and Western Europe, but it's going pretty well. What's happening behind the camera, this is more what I can achieve. And right now, my main focus is about, this is very specific topic, but there are many women behind the camera in my team. There are many women. But there's one part that is lacking, which is cinematography. Women in cinematography are, there is not enough of them because of the prejudices of the industry, of the film industry, which was always a male industry. And what the prejudices focus on, that the women are the weaker than men, and maybe they are less savvy on stress. They don't get the stress very well. I have to say that this is not true. I have been working with female cinematographers, and they are great. And this is I have to praise the Papaya, which is representing me, for representing also a cinematographer's women. And this is probably the greatest scope of female cinematographers in Poland. And this is the very good step. They have some challenges. I see it very well. They are hired more for smaller projects, not commercial, but charity, more of a charity project. And I want to change it. I've been working with great cinematographer already, and I'm waiting for work more with the different ones, because this is the global topic right now. The cinematographers between women the women are strongly underrepresented in cinematography world.
I think
other parts are okay, but cinematography, there is a lot to do, and the female perspective on image. The cinematographer is, this is my eyes, and female women can make a great change in my perspective on seeing things. This is the different personality, different feelings, and this is something I very appreciate because I work from creativity of my team. What I do is like make an idea, invite people, and wait for the result. And the result, the female result of seeing things, is something I'm very waiting very much for.
Krzysztof, I think that I wanted to chip in that actually this is the conversation about the representation at the Oscars and the Academy, which is like the best known, of course, industry.
Yes.
What's going on with that? Actually, this is a whole another topic, but there was a lot of myth about the inclusion during the Oscars. And I really engaged our audience, if you are interested, to look up the rules, actually, because they are trying to do something that you actually just brought up. So the inclusion in our world will happen if we see the different groups represented on screen in an authentic way. But also to make that happen, you have to have people effectively working together thanks to diversity behind the camera. And my last question, unfortunately, the last one, as an enthusiast of pop culture and the film industry, I would love to speak with you for hours. But the last question would be, maybe Justyna, you can share about working with different brands. How do they perceive diversity and inclusion when they are making their campaigns or the products? What is their approach to it? Did it change recently, for example?
Yes, I will make the connection with what just Krzysztof shared. So first approach the behind the camera. So, and again, praise a little bit more our international clients who very much often have even a specific KPIs on, engaging female talent into their projects. This is becoming more and more often. Either this is like a formal expectation that we will invite female directors or female DOPs to the bid, to the commercial bidding process in a certain representation, or they are very much open to consider these proposals equally to the male proposals. So this, I would say, is already happening. What is still, I think, a great area for development is that the topics that are distributing among male and female creators are regardless of the sex or the prejudices we have around the sex, because very often female directors are still excluded for example, for commercials for automotive industry, because there is a belief that only men can produce or direct the car commercial. So we are still not there yet, but I think 2 or 3 years ago the discussion was even at a totally different point. So we are moving, and we are moving very well now to the right direction. When it comes to the in front of camera, I think quite interesting case is when it comes to the casting, because this is also the place where we actually see that the brands are trying to communicate with the audience, having in mind different diversity elements. So we are more and more often asked to propose diverse casting, diverse in terms of nationality, sex, of course, but even disability or neurodiversity and elements like that. So actually, also from our point of view, we needed as a business to grow and to learn how to navigate with that actors on our sets, how to, propose proper conditions for them, make sure that they feel comfortable, whatever kind of difficulty they have. And the work on the set sometimes is very challenging. It requires many hours. It's a contact with many, many different people, and it's very intense. So we actually develop sets of procedures for different for example, neurodiversities or disabilities, to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. The clients are appreciating that a lot. So they also look for the companies who can do that. So they acknowledge that the production process needs to be well prepared for that. What I think when it comes to the message and the content that they come with, I think I said that already. This authenticity and emotional connection is something that is very important. Polish brands are, as I said, slightly more reluctant or more brave to cover it, but we have also many local examples, and I am a great fan of a brand, Polish jewelry brand called Yes, who probably you know some of their commercials, in which they are trying to address the gender differences, and each year they are even moving forward with some further topics, and trying to break the prejudices or the beliefs about I don't know, couples or people needing have children. That this, if this is like a need for everyone, and trying to promote different approaches to life and different behaviors or different styles of living. So these are the topics that not many brands yet feel super courage to communicate with. They are doing it in a very sensitive and in a very polite way, I would say, and they are winning. I think, you know, the how they grab the audience, how they catch the audience, doing it in an authentic way, engaging good and also diverse cast, engaging diverse talent behind the camera. I think this is a recipe for the success for their campaigns these days.
I think that you just summarized the conference basically with those words like authenticity, boosting the creativity, buying in the audience. The audience can be either our employees, and I think that whatever business we represent, we all have the same challenges, but also opportunities. So Krzysztof, Justyna, thank you very much for joining us from Papaya. We are very glad to have you here with us. So thank you once more.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. And I encourage you, everyone listening, to actually look at the perspective from your culture, your country that you are in. Because, yeah, it may be different in Poland, as they mentioned, but the topic is still very relevant. And to actually talk to your employees and colleagues about those stuff in terms of inclusion and representation. And I think that brings us to the close of this segment. So thank you very much for staying and joining me for a very different approach to diversity and inclusion.